This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us Benji Kaplan. He is a Brazilian guitarist, a jazz guitarist. How are you today, Benji?
I'm very good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thanks for
Let's
having me.
let's talk about your how you began. How did you get interested in playing the guitar? You were very young when you got your guitar, and how did you get your guitar at age 11? It was?
Yes. At age 11, I started playing because I was inspired by a guitarist in school where I was at the time. Um, he was a guitar player who was playing a nylon string, but he was playing like American. He was from Mexico City, I think, and his name was Jorge, if I remember correctly. I don't remember his last name. But he played on a nylon string, but he played like pop music like of the time, like 'cause this is the 90s, you know. And I wasn't particularly into the songs that he was playing, but the fact that he was playing it on a nylon string guitar, I was just, I thought it was so cool. And my brother also was a guitar player before I picked up the guitar. He's 3 years older than me, and I was also definitely influenced and inspired by being around him. And he was playing like Jimi Hendrix and a lot of interest, rock and stuff like that. So my first guitar was like a big acoustic Yamaha, just steel string, and that's what I started playing on. I was living in Vermont, and that's how it started. I took a little bit of lessons, but mostly was kind of just messing around and trying to be intuitive, like just um, not really studying that much, just kind of trying to get to understand myself through the process of music. So,
So you were in Vermont about 11 years old, and
yeah,
somehow you came across someone playing the nylon guitar.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, and
But
that's
then
how.
you got involved in music, and then somehow you drifted toward the Brazilian jazz. How did
Yeah.
what were the little stages that led you to Brazilian jazz?
So I should mention that my father was born in Cuba, and I don't know, somehow he had a really um, he fell in love with Brazilian music when he was like in high school or college, and he collected a lot of vinyl and even then later the CDs in the 80s and 90s and stuff of Brazilian music. I think I got to listen to a lot of like Cuban and Middle Eastern and African and jazz and American jazz and stuff like that. But the thing that I was like becoming obsessed with was his collection of Brazilian stuff.
Hmm.
So I was like listening to, and I got into like the most famous stuff like João Gilberto and the whole bossa nova movement that became famous in the United States. But I eventually went to Brazil when I was 18 for the first time, or maybe I was 17, and I traveled and I visited and I stayed with a family friend, and he was trying to get me to learn more. He said, "Oh, I got to take you to this store, and we got to get you to familiar with choro and samba and all these other kinds, because he imagined, oh, bossa nova, you're a gringo, you probably know the stuff that everybody knows, that most people know when they first get introduced to Brazilian music." But I knew a little bit more because my father had an unusual kind of collection of stuff like Clara Nunes and some like lesser known people in the US. But anyway, so that's just where it all expanded from there. And then he got me these CDs, and I started to listen to choro and instrumental stuff and stuff with vocalists, and then I started to learn the language, and then I just kind of continued, and my obsession grew greater, and my curiosity. So by the time I came back after my first year, my first few months when I was there, I was enrolled in a new school, and I started a jazz program playing in the jazz program and playing electric guitar. And I was in parallel always like really into like Charlie Parker and the bebop era stuff and earlier and all kinds of other jazz and fusion. But so this always kind of became a mainstay, and I just kind of tried to balance the two out. And I don't know. Eventually, I kind of the electric guitar fell away for me, and I think I just kind of found the nylon string to be like my home base instrument and to do everything where everything stems from, you know. So
Well,
for
it's
me,
much more portable than an electric guitar. You don't have to plug anything in.
yeah, yeah, that's true. You don't have to plug it in, except in certain circumstances. I plug it in when I'm doing shows and stuff like that. But yeah, recording usually acoustically. So I like that too, you know, because the guitar is complex and having all the other equipment to carry around and it's already enough, you know.
When you
So,
were in Brazil, was that for school? You only were there for 3 months? That sounds like
so
a semester.
yeah, yeah, I was there. I think the first time I was there for a month and a half, and I was just basically like a summer uh, trip exploration, you know, just to get to know. I had no idea what I was getting into or what. I just knew that I really liked the music, you know. But then it just you can't help but you get it caught up in all different kinds of things: the food, the dancing, the ceremonies, and the festivals, and like Festa Junina, which is a very popular uh, kind of carnival-esque celebration each year. It happens around the same time as like my birthday, so I was taken to some of these places, and you can see the kind of traditions that they have are like so unique and idiosyncratic to Brazil, you know, and it's a mix of African, European, um, and all these different cultures colliding together.
Was it
And you know,
the Festival de Niños? Is that the children's
uh,
festival?
yeah, Festa. Oh no, it's a Festa Junina. I think
Junina.
Junina, and I don't know what Junina means, but in my mind, I think Junina like June, like the month of June. But
Oh,
there's a lot of young people, and they paint, and they're wearing dresses, and they have painted faces, and um, also the music is very like there's a lot of music from the northeast of Brazil during that time. So all over the country, that kind of festival has music in the northeast that includes like baião and forró and and other things like frevo. So I became really in the sec. I saw that I went back to Brazil like the second year, of the following year when I was 19, and I did volunteer work. I did it through like a volunteer agency, and I was in a whole other area. I went to Recife and Olinda, and that was in the Northeast. So then that's where I really started to hear and get really influenced and learn more about specifically the Northeast of Brazil and their culture, the music. But and I was teaching. I was like volunteering teaching guitar, like jazz and improvisation, and that was a lot of fun. But I was kind of learning from them, and they were
what
showing
kind
me
of what
their songs, you know. So yeah,
what
sorry, go
kind of
ahead.
program was it that you were volunteering?
It was called Centro Educação Musical de Olinda, which is the music center of Olinda, and it was like a school for studying music, and I think the ages were anywhere between 5 and 7 until 14, something like that. And I don't remember now if it's like if it wasn't, I don't think, just an after school program, but it was like during the day, and it was a lot of private lessons and then maybe group lessons, and people studied other instruments like violin and piano, and they had guitar teachers. So I was like listening in on their lessons with their guitar teachers, and they were playing a lot of um, Brazilian, what you I guess consider Brazilian classical music, like stuff like Villa Lobos. But and I had been familiar with Villa Lobos too, and my brother had studied Villa Lobos as a classical guitarist because he became more of a classical player later. But I was also really interested in this sort of classical stuff that was uh, written by other composers that Villa Lobos new, and but they were a little bit more in the popular music realm, like João Pernambuco, who was from that. Pernambuco is the state in which I was staying and living in Recife and Olinda. And those guys wrote some really beautiful songs that, you know, machishos and choros. And so I started to learn those songs too, and I started to study a lot of the pieces and stuff that people were playing there that they were showing me. So it was like really a nice exchange, like more than me just going there and teaching. You know, I was there and learning. I didn't
Right.
know what was going to happen. So I really, you know.
Did they tell stories in their songs in that region?
Oh yes, they definitely tell stories in their songs in that region, and all the regions. And I think I got more interested. I think before I went to Brazil, I thought I was more interested in Brazilian music from the instrumental perspective, like because I heard Stan Getz playing bossa nova, and I thought, you know, it's Brazilian jazz, etc. But when I went to Rio and I was in São Paulo and in the Northeast, a lot of these songs are sung, and that was when I first really hit me. It was like, oh well, there's something deeper. I mean, not deeper, but it's just different kinds of. It's like different colors and textures. You know, you play a saxophone and you get you get you get a certain atmosphere with instrumental music, but the melodies are coming from somewhere that you're playing, and a lot of these didn't really have a connection of where these melodies come from, and a lot of these melodies are written with songwriters like the way we have in the U.S. like Gershwin, and you have a lyricist and you have a composer, and a lot of times some of these people were composers and lyricists and writing the songs together, like Noel Rosa from Rio, was a popular samba composer in the 20s and 30s. And you listen to the stories and then the melodies, and sometimes the stories lead the voice to create certain melodies, and you know, so you begin to get interested in the folklore and the telling of a story beyond just the realm of uh, the melody in itself, you know. So yeah, like there was definitely a lot of songs like I mean, their most famous song, I think, from the Northeast, and the father of like the Baião and that tradition was Luis Gonzaga, and he wrote a song called Baião, which it's called Eu vou mostrar para você como se dança Baião. I will show you how to dance Baião. E quem quiser aprender, a favor prestar atenção. Whoever wants to learn, come pay attention. Yeah. But then the song goes, Eu vou mostrar para você como se dança o Baião. E quem quiser aprender, a favor prestar atenção. So, these kind of melodies are just mysterious. I fell in love with the mystery and the further I go, the more mysterious I think it all is. But that's maybe what keeps me
In your late
propelled. That,
in your latest album, Untold Stories,
yeah,
you mentioned that you're trying to explore the stories with the music. There aren't any
yeah,
vocals in the songs, but
yeah.
here,
That's true.
let's talk about the Vigilante. I listened to that one, and could you tell us a little bit about the process in which the music incorporates into the story, and what kind of Vigilante are we talking about?
Yeah. So I was thinking, I remember when I said I was trying to figure out what would be a good title for the song, and it happened to be that I wrote that song like around the time that my son was like 6 or 9 months old. So we were getting up in the middle of the night and uh, all the time, losing sleep and the whole thing, and like this process, and that was kind of when that song was that I was writing, and I felt like the word vigilante is kind of like, in a way, a vigilante is a protector of people, but there also can do vigilante can also be is not a perfect person too, and they can be bad, and so I don't know. So I felt like the song has a lot of like kind of dark and lightness in it at the same time, and I was thinking like about my relationship to my son right now, like he's developing and he's not talking, he's not walking, but I have to watch over him and I have to be very careful and I have to make sure that nobody's gonna hurt him, and that also like if I leave him alone for 1 second, he could fall or anything like that. So I don't know. I guess um, yeah, I like to play with words. I like puns a lot. So I really, um, vigilante, vigilante's up. I was thinking the vigilante is up. He's awake. The vigilante is awake. And then I felt the vigilante ante's up. And so when you ante up, you're kind of taking it to the next level. And I don't know. So in a certain way, I was having kind of fun with playing with words. But it is interesting that, the album that most recent album that I released, it's all instrumental music because a lot of the time when I write, my process is kind of like that. I write songs uh, on the guitar, and then later maybe we'll have lyrics come in. And but other projects I have, I might write the songs where I play the chords and I sing the melodies too. So, but a lot of where my melodies are coming from, I think they have a story to tell. So maybe that's just this is just one um, step place in the road along a continuum, of a
We
story
understand.
that's still to be told. Yeah, I
We
guess.
understand
Yeah,
a little better now. Vigilante
yeah,
means vigilant. It's not the revenge vigilante. It's the vigilant person that you're
yeah,
the father and protector of your child.
exactly.
And
Which is like
let's
that.
play yeah, let's play a little bit of
Sure, sure.
vigilante.
Okay.
Now we do understand a little better. When I first listened to it, it seemed as if there wasn't any violence at all to the song. It seemed pretty mild and peaceful. Now that you explained it, that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I suppose it. Yeah, maybe it is just peaceful. I don't know. Yeah, yeah, it's hard to characterize, I guess.
Very nice.
Thank
Would
you.
you like to talk about your other songs? And what about the Untold Stories? Is
Oh.
stories that you haven't haven't shared with other people, or
Yeah, yeah. I guess in a way, it's like a way of saying for me, untold stories, like um, songs that haven't been heard before, stories that haven't been told yet. You know, stories that I haven't told to others, or I haven't shared with others. But or stories that don't have that even when they're told, maybe they're still untold. I don't know. Untold stories. So yeah, it's and that's the title track, I guess, of the album. Um, and yeah, I guess I just saw the song as a an untold story. The whole album is untold stories. Like in Portuguese, there's a term we say a song is inédita. It's an unregistered song, you know. So I felt like I had a lot of songs that, in a certain way, I was limited because I didn't really. I was recording the album at home, and I guess I was saying like my son, he was around 9 months, so there was a lot of I didn't have as much time to dedicate to my music or to record or to put the songs into a different dimension. Like a lot of times, what I would do is I'd work a long time on an album and would arrange it for all different kinds of instruments or have lyrics so that it would tell a story with other elements. But the whole album is just the guitar, so in a certain way, I guess I was thinking they're untold stories because I've oftentimes told the story um, in a way that I was trying to make it more clear to other people, and in this way, I sort of like telling a raw. story that's where it's just straight from the origin, right? Straight from uh, the moment of conception, the way it was conceived, the
Mhm.
songs from in their purest form. So in
How do
that sense, they're untold stories too.
these are all your original compositions, right?
Yes, yes. And I
Where
think in that, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
where do you start? Do you have a feeling and then there's a story to tell, then you start writing the music, or is there some music that's already in your head and then you figure out the how that music is relevant to some part of your life?
That's a great question. I think it's can be a mix and or it's all of those things and not always at the same time and not all in all contexts. But yeah, sometimes I hear an idea in my head and then I come to the guitar and I try um, to put it down and see where it goes. Um, and then as I start building on it, other ideas come in the process. And usually, and a lot of times they come while I have the guitar in my hand. And then sometimes I'm driving or I'm doing exercise, and then I come back and I hear another idea, and then I feel like I got to run to the instrument, and a lot of times what I do is I record little voice memos, on my phone, and I just click record, and then I would get those ideas. Like so, a lot of these songs in particular. Some of them were like that, and they were written at different times too. Some of them I had written years before, and then others were written more like right around that time. But also a lot of the songs I think are born out of the sweat and tears that the artists like when you're studying something else, like oh I really want to learn a piece of Egberto Gismonti or something of Debussy, and then maybe as I'm struggling to play that piece, and a lot of times I'm learning it by ear, so I'm doing it very slowly. I learn things, and I have to slow down because um, it's a lot of information. I have to repeat it over and over. So there's so much repetition involved in learning, especially learning music. And I think some of the ideas that come in some of the songs are also coming from the studying of other music, and then something's born out of that. And sometimes I think, oh, maybe the best stuff is that the best stuff is born out of, you know, when you're trying to learn or mimic something else. But it's such a mysterious thing, music, and that's the beauty of it, that you're not always, it's unpredictable, and it's not always that way either. So there's no um,
When you use
clear-cut
your
way.
phone, when you use your phone to record your musical ideas, then you kind of hum what you hear in your head, the melody, and then so that you won't lose it when you go back to it later.
Exactly, exactly. Or what I do is but I've done that too. But a lot of the times, what I would do is I would just play some of the ideas on the guitar so I don't forget them and record them into the. But I said voice memos. Yeah, I mean, uh, I'm also using it as just a recording device so that I can play it through. But then I'll sometimes I'll have multiple little like 20-second segments, and then sometimes I'll say, where does this all fit together? And I ended up just kind of, in some way, maybe I don't even need the voice memos, but it's like a crutch. I think, oh, what if I forget this idea, and then I can come back to it. And sometimes you start recording ideas, and the frustrating thing is that it's like a puzzle, and you put the pieces in, but there's one piece that really doesn't belong there, and it takes uh, time and frustration to figure out that no, maybe it doesn't belong there, and then that little piece of something while you were making that song belongs in some other thing, and you figure it out maybe a year later or a month later that oh, that's exactly where it belongs. And just to have that ability to sometimes let go and say I'm going to hold off on that and not worry about it. And um, sometimes you have something that the whole thing seems like it comes all at once and it's all well resolved, except one little last thing at the end, and you think, how you made it so easy for me. Why is it going to be hard now? So it's
Do
just
you
funny,
use
I guess. Yeah.
do you carry your guitar with you most of the time?
I carry it a lot with me. Sometimes what I do is but a lot of times I just leave it at home, and I just I pick it up when I have it, try to have it available like downstairs so I can just pick it up and play. But a lot of times it's sort of dependent on, like with my son, if he's taking a nap, then that's a time where I can pick it up or something. And then, or when I have my time um, free, and it's yeah. I mean, I've done so many different things. Like sometimes he's napping in the car, and then so I can't really. I bring the guitar with me, or what I do is I bring my computer with me, and I'm working on arrangements for a new album right now, for example, with my wife, and I'm arranging with strings and with bass drums and voice. So I'll just start working on an arrangement for a song that we wrote on my computer while he's sleeping in the car, and I'll do stuff with the guitar, but I'll use the Sibelius. So I'll just try try to come up with ideas more from my head, which is also a different and nice experience. But there's times where I maybe don't pick up the guitar for four. Sorry about that. No, just times I don't pick up the guitar for 4 or 5 days. But usually I'm working on a regular or a daily basis on music in some way, whether it's through like composing through in Sibelius or on the guitar.
It sounds
So
like your son is not disturbed. He could sleep right through your playing the music. He probably listens to it like a lullaby.
he could. I think that yeah, I've written. I think I wrote like a lullaby or two for him. But a lot of times I think he can't. It depends. Sometimes it seems like he could sleep through anything in loud noise, but sometimes it's the change of sound that wakes him up. So, but I could definitely try to risk that, and pick up the guitar while he's sleeping while I'm close to him. But a lot of times I want to be able to play the guitar while he's awake, while I'm awake with him, and just say, oh, I'm going to play a little, and he'll play with his toys, because sometimes he'll play with his toys. But as soon as I pick up the guitar, he gets fascinated by it, and he wants to come over and play. So we'll do like some, but it's very hard to. I always think, oh, maybe at some point he'll it'll be a cool thing where he can do his thing and I can do my thing, and we can be in the same room and coexist. But it's a lot of times that's a challenge. Um,
What
but
about when you were young?
it ends up
When you were
yeah.
young, when your dad, when you saw the guitar, was that how you were introduced to the guitar as well?
Oh,
By
by
your
him playing.
brother? Well, yeah, by your brother.
Ah, yeah. Well, yeah. When I was younger, so I was introduced. I think actually the weird thing is when I was hearing a lot of music when I was like 6 and 7, and the Beatles, and my brother was listening to a lot of stuff. He was around 9 and 10. But I actually at that time I kind of declared to my family that I don't like music. I hate music. And I said I don't want to hear it or anything. And I think I was lying to myself too. It was a strange thing, and it's even today they still mention it. Like, did you really hate music? And I'm not sure. I guess maybe it was just I was trying to carve out my own space in the family or something. But so yeah, I was hearing music from them and him playing. So, and then I got into like Blues Traveler and like rock bands and stuff from in the '90s. Um, I became like my one of my favorite bands is even still today is like I really like Steely Dan, and like um yeah, there's but I was listening to I think yeah, when I was around 9 or 10, I really got into like classical music, and I was painting a lot too. I love painting, so I would just put music on like Bach or Beethoven, and I had like a player where I could put in a tape or CDs, and the Beatles, like so much Beatles, and I would just have good music to paint to. So that was a fun thing, and I play along with. I played percussion too. Like my father raised us playing Middle Eastern music and also on a djembe, and I got to take some classes with Alatunji when I was really young at Omega. So like from the age of 5, 6, or 7, we were immersed with music in the music and playing percussion instruments and like the didgeridoo and recorder, and so like there was no shortage of like um, musical
What I meant was
thinking
that
and
you know how
stuff.
your son right now wants to play around with your guitar. When you were
Yeah.
introduced to the guitar and became fascinated with it, was it that the same experience that you had, like your son is having with you right now?
Ah, I see. I'm sorry. Yeah. I would say maybe because the thing is, I don't remember what I was like at that age, the age that he is now. He's 2. I just don't remember what any of that was like, you know? And that's the thing, you know. It's just I just remember being uh, with my brother all the time, you know. But I think and that at that age, I don't think, yeah, I really don't remember too
Oh,
much
that's okay.
at that time. Yeah, yeah.
And also, you like to paint, and then you like to
Yes.
compose now. Is there any correlation between your method of painting and the colors and your composition of music?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's like, you know, it's creativity is something that's just channeled differently at different times in different ways. And I think for me, I mean, paint like the, in particularly just like the process of composing usually is one of solitude where you're alone and you're with yourself. It's you and your instrument, and you're working out ideas and um, trying different colors, etc. And I think um, so. That's to me actually the closest thing in a way to painting because then the process of out what happens after or when you get together with other musicians and you start playing with other players, I think, I mean, if you can compare it, but I think the most similar thing is that process of composing itself, you know. And maybe I like this sort of doing it, being alone, and the solitude and just working on ideas without anybody else, at least in the beginning, you know, interfering or interacting. You know, it's just like very personal. But also like, you know, and then sometimes you get idea like someone comes along or my wife tells me like, oh, that's cool. Well, why don't you should work on developing this section more or something. Sometimes she gives me ideas, good ideas too, that I take too, you know. And like I used to see like my mom is like I really love her painting. She's been painting for many years, and I kind of got frustrated with painting because I wanted to paint like her, I think, and like, but I felt like, oh, I'll never reach that or something, you know. And there's a lot of sort of criticism in my mind, you know. But but I also but I appreciate the idea that, you know, um, like for example, she's very humble and she's always taking classes and always learning more and learning from other painters and learning from and like studying screenwriting or studying about like collage or something, anything about art or anything about creativity that she doesn't know about, she gets involved in, and it helps her and it fuels what she does. And I think that's inspiring and influential for me as well because I like to like learn from other people and listen to a lot of other musicians and also take in other kinds of whatever it is. You know, I think the music is not happening in a vacuum. So everything we do, like in life, go to the zoo, you know, and maybe the experience of going to the zoo or meeting with your friends or uh, seeing something completely different, being in a different place. It's those are all like really important things. And I think sometimes I we get up caught up in the solitude and the obsession with the creative process, and you don't get out of it, you know, and like you get depressed or you know it's just like you have to break out of it, you know, and to have fresh ideas to live in the world, you know, and be in the world.
What would be the color of solitude, would you say?
Of solitude,
Yes.
ah, maybe yellow or blue. Yeah.
And then do you ever think of yellow and blue when you're composing?
No, I never think about colors or anything that I'm composing. But that would be nice. Maybe I'll start to see that, you know, and see things that way. Um, yeah,
You,
that's awesome.
your wife is a vocalist. Have you
Yes,
composed,
she's
have you ever thought about these songs and untold stories, maybe adding lyrics in the future for her?
that would be a lot of fun. I definitely have, and sometimes I bring some of those songs in to our repertoire together, and she does write lyrics. So this new album that we're working on is a combination of stuff that we were doing during like the pandemic, and she wrote lyrics and she wrote music as well, and I wrote lyrics in English for her music, and she wrote lyrics in Portuguese for mine, and she wrote some of her own music and her own lyrics, and then I wrote some of the songs are completely my music and lyrics, and what we've done in the our previous album was similar to like what we're talking about with this album. I had written some songs and maybe even recorded some of them in different iterations on the guitar, etc. And so our first song actually ever was a song that I had written like totally on the guitar, and I said this song would never work with lyrics. I thought to myself, well, why does she want this song? Why does she want to take this song and do something with words? And she had her whole story in her mind, you know, because she's also an animator, so she does animation and illustration. So when she writes lyrics, I feel like she gets very visual and very much she starts to think about she sees a story, like a story that I never could have imagined. Like we wrote a song called that I wrote a song that was also I thought was pretty instrumental. I hadn't thought about ever having lyrics, and she wrote lyrics and called it Memorial Day. But it was written in Portuguese, but it was about the soldiers and you know possible stories of people during the times you know of World War One and World War Two, American soldiers coming and going from their country and how they interacted with society and the things that they might have gone through. I mean, you know, and it's interesting that you can tell stories, to feel that you can tell stories about through music that aren't necessarily your own personal experience, but that all of a sudden something comes through, like it comes through you. You don't know where it's coming from. Why am I all of a sudden thinking about as though I were a tree? I like to write a song as though, what is it like to be a tree? But the trees don't get offended if you say, "Oh, why is he writing a song about me?" and you don't even know what my life is like. So I think, and that's an interesting thing too. But now I'm like getting kind of tangential, I guess. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting process to take the songs and
It
these songs
sounds
and do something more as well in the future.
it sounds like when you're talking about the stories and composing, have you ever tried your hand at the screenwriting? Because that would probably be applicable to what you're doing now.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, no, I never thought about it, and I really. The only thing I guess in that realm I thought of was like, okay, I'm going to try to get some of my music into, you know, shows or movies because people tell me that it's very cinematic. So, you know, I work with like sync licensing agency, a sync licensing agency, um, but I never thought about like doing the actual screenwriting myself. Um, but that would be a lot of fun because then you're kind of creating the whole process as part of your experience, you know? So
And I think
that would be.
what I think I used the wrong term, but you might be, you might be able to do screenwriting. What I meant was soundtracks. Have you
Oh,
ever
that's
done
right,
soundtracks?
soundtracks. Yeah, all right. So yeah. Okay, yeah. So that was I was kind of on the right track. No pun intended. Yeah. So I did actually do a soundtrack, and it was a very interesting experience, and I would definitely do more of it. So you know, I'm always open for that opportunity.
What film?
Um,
Do you still remember? Like,
it was a documentary, and I don't know if it's been released yet or if when it will be, but it was a documentary about uh, a person that has a disease that has something to do with I think it's can't remember the name of the disease. It starts with a P, PC something, and it has to do with you can't eat certain foods or you'll get very sick, and so this kid had actually went on uh, a very specific diet, and he was able to remediate a lot of the problems associated with the illness, and he was doing like a he was like an Olympic dancer. And so I don't know, I was coming up with trying to come up with music. Some of the music I had ideas that I had previously that I thought would apply well, and then I also created some stuff on the spot, which was a that's a whole other realm, right? So that's a good experience. I think the more I would do film music for film or um, uh, that kind of thing, then
It
you
kind
get
of
more
sounds
out of
like
it.
it sounds like you were talking about the celiac disease, right?
Ah, maybe that's what it is. I'm not sure if it's celiac disease, but it's called PKU or something.
Oh,
I have to look it up maybe. Yeah, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so then I've also done with Rita, my wife. She did a lot of animation videos, and we did stuff together. So I did the music for those videos. So in a way, I was doing the soundtrack for her animation, or she was doing the animation for the music, or
mm,
together, you know. But
very nice.
actually, we're talking about in the future doing a project where she has a story, and she has the animation illustration, and then I'll create new music specifically for that. But but definitely more of the work that I've done is my music, um, created and then perhaps imposed um, on the scene
You played
after
at
the
the
fact.
festivals too, right?
Ah, yes, yes, absolutely. I played at the Brazil Fest and Summerfest and Music Fest in Pennsylvania, and um, even a film fest and at the as part of the Rhinebeck. They have a film independent film center as well. Um,
How was that?
Haven't done a festival, unfortunately.
The Independent Film Center. What was that all about? That festival.
Oh, so well, that festival was, I think it was called like the picture show that they were putting on a special festival. Because in general, they have like 3 or 4 independent film centers in the Hudson Valley, and I think it's called the Hudson Valley Picture Show. And that was very cool because I was playing before the screening of, I think it was like the screening of a Hitchcock movie, and I don't remember which one. It was maybe Vertigo or something. But so yeah, I was performing outside, and they were screening the movie outside, which is cool because in general they're in the indoor movie theaters, you know. And so yeah, I was basically playing um, sort of before the film, a solo set. So that was fun. But yeah, I've done many different kinds of festivals and over the years, and it's been a lot of fun. It's an interesting thing because there's always other bands going on in the same area, you know,
Mhm.
sometimes at the same time, and you get to check out what other people are doing as well, you know, and it's usually varied to different kinds of artists, you know. So it's a
You
good
get
experience.
you get to expand your network that way too.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you'll be performing. I mean, I remember one time we were playing at the music fest, and so Rita and I were doing shows and a show, and then randomly we got an email, I think a few weeks later, from somebody that wanted to invite us to play at Penn State University. So we played at Penn State a few months later, and you know, so that it's an unexpected. Yeah, you never know where who's there and what people are listening. Even playing in the farmers market, like we played at the farmers market a few months ago in Rhinebeck, because we live in upstate New York now, and that was a very interesting experience because I saw a lot of different people walking by, and you meet people from like all over the world, like and even some musicians, and sometimes you'll see, like uh, yeah, I mean, I saw some people that I had recognized from New York City, or um, sometimes you'll see, people that are, I don't know, news. Castor or something. You never know who's around wherever you are. I mean, even one of my favorite experiences in the past was like playing in the subway about 15 or so years ago. That's where I met my first songwriting partner from Brazil. I was playing in the subway. I was playing like Wave by Zabim, and then he thought I was Brazilian, uh, but somehow, and we started talking, and he was just flying over from, had gone back from a festival in Mexico, and he was in New York, and then he was going back to Brazil, and he wrote we wrote our first uh, partnership together, which is a Baião called Baião para Gershwin, and so we till this day we write new songs together, and he records them in Brazil and I record them here and performs them there. And that was amazing because I was like I had said to him, it was like it was like a prophecy or something. I had this idea in my head. I'm ready to have a partner who's a lyricist from in Portuguese, because I would like to have some kind of somebody else working together, collaborating. And then it sounds like dropped out of the sky, and then that started. And so like I felt like it was a sign that, okay, if that's what I wanted to do, I'm going in the right direction.
And
That's
you
not
worked with this,
that wasn't just by mistake. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't, by chance. It was like something more in my mind, at least. I made it to seem like this was meant to be. It had some kind of
and you worked
yeah.
with this person afterwards too on projects?
Yeah, exactly. So we wrote, uh, I recorded uh, another song that we had done together, which would translate as "Escape from Alcatraz," and then "Fuga de Alcatraz," and I recorded that on my 2016 album called "Why So." And Rita and I were on our honeymoon and in California, in San Francisco, and we happened to see, gazing out from the dock, uh, the Alcatraz ward. And I said, that song I wrote recently on the album, that I wrote, I mean, the music, and Makeli Kaos, the lyricist, he wrote these lyrics, Fuga de Alcatraz, and I said, it's a kind of talking about Alcatraz, but it's like a song about a relationship between two people, and that doesn't last very long, but it's like they think they love each other, but and then it all kind of ends, and it's sort of tragic. But it's a fuga de Alcatraz. It's a double meaning because it could be like the feud of Alcatraz, and it also could mean the escape of Alcatraz. So, and it has a very repetitive kind of haunting melody. So, and then she said, okay, well, why don't we do the music video for it? And she had cameras and stuff like that. And then we kind of impromptu decided to, during our honeymoon, let's do this music video. So we're like working all of a sudden, and she's filming and doing. I said maybe we could reserve like a day that we could go into the Alcatraz, that we could take a boat and go in. But like I think that it was so full because so many people are always reserving a spot. So we just shot images, from the distance, and there was like seagulls and and everything, and just the atmosphere was amazing. And then she mixed it hybrid with an animation that she did of a character and a boat, and it's like it was perfect. So I was really blessed to, I don't know, to bring all these different worlds together. And
And the song
yeah,
about the Alcatraz, that one was published too, right? You did the,
yeah. So I recorded that. It's online, and we have the music video there as well. So people can see it. It's on YouTube and Fuga de Alcatraz, and I think that one was in. Yeah, no, I don't think that one. And then we did another video that was in Billboard, Brazil. That it's also on YouTube, but we recorded that in the redwood forests, which was really cool.
yeah, please
Um,
send the links for both of these videos to me so we could add them
sure.
to the description.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to.
When you were
Yeah.
in Brazil and in the singing, playing in the subway, did you have to get a busking license?
So like I was when I had started to do it, I was I think that I had started doing it before there's Music Under New York, which you have a banner and you get a license. So to be honest, I wasn't always doing it, but then I also did do it during that time. So I didn't have a license. So I would just do it until I'd get kicked out, or a police officer would come by and say you can't play there. But it actually really takes a toll to play right where I was playing, which is off the C train, uptown C train platform on 14th Street. The trains are going by and it's very loud. And when you leave there after a while, your ears get kind of caked up. And I think over time you could lose your maybe some hearing or whatever if you do it long enough.
So was
But
that
yeah,
in Brazil or was that in New York? In New
in New
York.
York City, yeah, New York City,
Got
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So I grew up and I was born and raised in the city, and but in New York City. Now we kind of live between here in New York, upstate New York, and São Paulo, Brazil, where my
Mhm.
wife is from and her family's there. So.
Yeah, but you found that the musician, that Brazilian musician, he happened to be in New York.
And he
Yeah.
happens to be in New York at that time. A lot of the magical things happen. I made some great friendships that have lasted till today, and from meeting people in the subway. So I mean, of all kinds of people. You also have a lot of really bad experiences in the subway too. Like, I remember this girl came up to the guitar and tried to, oh, can I play that? I think she was under some influence or something. I don't know. But, you know, it's a lot of heavy energy, right? And different kinds of energy at different times of the day. And sometimes it's a magical moment, um, but it's like probably one of the most incredible learning experiences because it's so spontaneous and you don't know what's going to happen. And that is all about letting go. I mean, so,
Did you ever
uh,
collaborate with Howard Mandel, or did he just write a review for you?
he just wrote a review. Does he play?
Yes, he
Oh, but
does.
I
Uh,
don't think it's the composer. Uh, oh, yeah. Is it? Howard
yeah,
Mandel.
yeah.
Yeah.
He is a. I think he plays the guitar. I have
Oh,
to.
cool.
Yes.
No, it would be nice though. I would love to. Maybe I can reach out to him and ask him if he
What
would
does he play?
allow me. And
Well,
then there's a composer, Johnny Mandel, right?
oh,
That was a good. That was a. Uh, didn't he write music for film and is it Johnny Mandel? I don't remember.
yeah.
Being There. There's a movie called Being There, but that's Johnny
I do
Mandel.
know that there's a classical composer, Mandel, but I don't know the first name
Yeah.
of that composer.
Yeah.
Mhm. What,
And
so for your current project, so Untold Stories was released about in April, and you're doing another project now, you say, right?
yes, exactly. I'm doing a new project that we're going to record in Brazil in maybe February or March or April in São Paulo. And I've been arranging the music for it. It's kind of got some pop, a lot of pop elements and classical and Brazilian and jazz all mixed together. And the lyrics, a lot of them are in Portuguese and some of them in English, but it's all, all the songs have lyrics. We recorded two of them last year in the studio there, and then when we came back to the U.S., we started to um, uh, I'm just doing the rest of the arrangements, and then we plan to record them there. But and then I'm already kind of I have a lot of music that I in English, like with my own lyrics that I started to write a lot of lyrics in English the last 3 years, I'm kind of eager to mm, arrange and record those as well. But so some of it, some of it has elements of like Broadway, too, which I like. And a lot of times I find that when I write songs, the kind of stuff that I've been writing, and then I have lyrics in English, people comment that it sounds very like vaudevillian or Broadway or musical theater, etc. And I think that's kind of interesting because I think in a lot of ways, a lot of the Brazilian stuff, if you hear it sung in English, it would seem that way. Maybe it seems that way too. But what it's nice about singing the stuff in English is that it kind of has a different, that it doesn't just stay. You can't really call it just Brazilian music, you know. I guess it's, I don't know, pop
It
or
seems as if you enjoy a lot of different genres of music, and then but you really,
yeah,
really enjoy Brazilian music, and when
yeah,
you're creating, you're applying the Brazilian music to everything else or combinations of everything else.
absolutely, definitely. But I think now I've kind of more recently I've been um, remembering there's other kind of influences, you know, like from jazz music and like and Gershwin and all the Tim Alley composers and Cole Porter, and I did an album previously to this album, Untold Stories, of just jazz standards, but on nylon string guitar as well, so all acoustic stuff. But it's kind of blurs the line between something classical and jazz.
Mm.
But yeah, I really like, but I'm really I got back into a lot of like remembering stuff that I liked in the past, like Steely Dan and even the Doobie Brothers, you know, and bands like my father also played a lot of that stuff in the house too, like America, you know, and also I always loved Fleetwood Mac, you know, and you hear Fleetwood Mac on the radio like all the time, you know. So in some ways you get tired of it. Oh, I just, but but remembering that I used to listen to that as a kid and just how much I was in awe, like James Taylor and all that stuff. I mean,
So you apply
but
elements of let's say Fleetwood Mac and James Taylor to some of your work as well, and
I don't know. Yeah, maybe, maybe the influence must be there. But I think I was shadowed so much when I fell so in love with Brazilian music. But as I started writing lyrics in English, I start to realize that music is just music. It's a kind of a universal thing. And if you change the beat, you change a little bit of the rhythm, you change the language, then all of a sudden you say, okay, is it Brazilian or is it African or is it rock and pop or rock? I've been asking myself that a lot lately. Like, what is rock, rock? Or what is pop? Like when you listen to Paul Simon, I was digging into Paul Simon's music and listening to stuff of his that I'd never heard because I always heard like Simon and Garfunkel, so much Simon and Garfunkel, and I loved it. But there's some Paul Simon stuff, just his solo stuff, and some of it sounds like some of the songs he had sung by Aretha Franklin, right? And it have like a gospel feeling. But then some of the songs have like a jazz standard kind of feeling. Like he wrote a song called "I Do It for Your Love," and it features Toots Thielemans and even a Brazilian accordionist and singer named Sivuca. And so you're like, oh, there's all this pop album from the 1970s by Paul Simon, who's a very Americana folk, considered Americana folk, but he clearly has something in his heart for Brazil and for jazz and standards too. And then I'm starting to realize as I embrace more like writing in English how many more things are there in me and also in the artists that I might have always said, oh well, that's pop or this is jazz. So I'm more and more kind of embracing all the music as though it's um, everyone is constantly having confluences and influences and going in different directions. Like
that's why you
stay
composing.
true to what feels right in you, but you know, so like, but like Peggy Lee did an album. I was so astonished to hear that like this album from 1979, I think, or 78, or maybe it was in the early 80s. That song, Is That All There Is? Was a very popular song that I had never even heard growing up, but I discovered it, and then I found out like who wrote the songs for the album was the same people that wrote "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog" for Elvis Presley. And you're thinking, oh, the same people that wrote "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog" wrote these weird musical haunting esque kind of songs, and you're like, okay, well maybe a songwriter, if you're a songwriter, it could be anything, the music you write. So I don't know,
Hmm.
but and I
It's
think
interesting.
yeah, it's interesting. I'm sorry I'm going off a little bit on a tangent, but I'm just trying to understand my own.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
interesting that you spoke about That's All There Is by Peggy Lee. I was actually listening to that song about 2 weeks ago, again and
oh
again.
wow,
It was
yeah,
quite fascinating.
isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, it
and
is.
her life story, right? I mean, I guess people say it was kind of tragic, and that album shows like a very personal side. That's the thing is the album shows like kind of a very personal side, right, of her life, and it gets very introspective. I find, I think that I find it a little bit of a one thing that I feel in Brazil, where I feel at home with music and the relationship to the audience and what people listen to, is I feel that like writing a lot of music that's introspective, that doesn't always have a beat or have a certain like fast pace or whatever, that it's welcome in a certain way. That like it seems like there was a time and place for people to write music that it was introspective and it wouldn't be thought of as something that oh it's too scary for us to listen to. And I think here I find that the where you can express that music in that kind of introspective way, it's harder. It's like more of a niche. Like it's how do you sell that? Where do you present that? And I think a lot of artists find that they have to put themselves into a specific kind of box or branding or something. The whole branding thing also has become a big question as well.
I've been speaking with several artists that are very into Brazilian music, and
Yeah,
I was trying to find a connection. Maybe there's something there where you're talking about the introspective. Maybe despite all the beats and all the Brazilian style, there's that element of introspection as well in it that attracts musicians like you who are writing
yes,
music that is very introspective.
yes, definitely. And I think my wife has done something really good. She always pushes me to do stuff that I like at first. Why aren't you writing songs in English? And I said, I don't know. Is when I first met her, and then eventually or why don't I sing songs in English? Why are you mostly singing songs in Portuguese? Oh, those are the songs I like to sing. But then I thought about it, and then I started really singing a whole bunch of jazz standards in English. But then uh, she said, we're recording this album, but I want to produce, she said. And I said, okay, fine, no problem. And then I was worried, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to have the artistic creative freedom to arrange everything the way I want. And she saw some of my ideas and she said, oh, that's amazing. And then she said, why are you doing this thing here? Like, it's all like, it's out of time and it's going into these like moments of something more classical where there's the fermata and then it's back in time again. Why don't you take the song and like, why don't we do something where it stays like in this tempo and it has a little bit of a pop element. And at first I was like, no, this is not what I want. But then I started to try it. And then I was like, actually, this song, it's going to be better this way. Or at least I will do a version of this song like that. And I'll be happy. And then later, if I want, I can do another version of it in some other way. Or if I'm just playing alone with the guitar, then I can do it at a time. But my go-to is to just sort of do everything the way like that it was composed. And she's getting me to think outside of that realm. And so I actually like I also write sambas and stuff that's more up tempo, But I was just more commenting that, you know, yes, there's a lot of introspection and stuff, but there's a mix, and I think, I'm excited to do this project with her because it's yeah, I don't know,
You
to
mentioned
have more
earlier about
tempo.
the you mentioned earlier about some piece in some of your compositions that don't belong there, that one piece that doesn't belong there. What
Yeah.
happens to that piece when you take it out? Do you use it for something else?
Yes, I think that yeah, I eventually we use it for something else, or it falls by the wayside and I'll never see it again.
Mm.
Or maybe it'll reappear if I go to these voice notes things in my cell phone, maybe I'll find something in there. Um, but a lot of times, sometimes stuff just gets lost for forever, and it's okay too. Like some of it,
Well,
and yeah. Yeah.
thank you,
Mhm.
Benji Kaplan, for joining us on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM today. If our listeners want to learn more about you and listen to your music, where should they go?
Oh, great. They can hear my music on Spotify, or and if they're interested in purchasing music, they can go to Bandcamp and supporting the artist more directly is always great. And my website, benjikaplan.com. It's benjikaplan.com, and there's discography and bio and all that stuff. So thank you again so much for having me on your program. It was
You're
very
welcome.
fun
And
talking to you.
any of your events are also, any of your gigs are also on the website?
Yes, they are. And right now there aren't, and there's nothing right now on the horizon, but hopefully soon. Definitely in Brazil in the upcoming year and the beginning of the year. So definitely stay tuned for upcoming events, etc. And new music as well. Thank you.
Okay.
And Instagram, I should sorry mention that I have music on Instagram, and on Instagram I sometimes just post stuff randomly too. So I'll put up new stuff, um, fairly regularly
Yes, just send us
as
all
well.
the links
So
to
yeah,
your
yeah.
social media, and then we'll share them on the
Sure.
description of this interview.
Okay, great. I'll send them perfect.
Awesome.
Okay, great. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much, Benji Kaplan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.